Now I want to make sure that I get my proportions right. And most faces adhere to, generally adhere to what's known as ideal proportions. That is from the top of the head to the bottom of the chin. So you look from here to here, find the very center point, right in the middle. It's about where the eyes go. Find the center point through here, because your face is symmetrical. So you want to generally find the center point in here. You work back in. If you get your line wrong, it's not a big deal. You can always smooth over a bad line. You get the general idea there. So we have the eyes right smack in the middle of the face, and then the center line, again, right in the middle from top to bottom. Okay, we measure the eyes, again, from the top of the head to the bottom of the chin. And this part it's basically all about fractions. Then again, from the top of the head to the bottom of the chin, about 1/3 of the way down, we're going to place the eyebrows. And then from the eyebrows to the bottom of the chin, halfway between that is about where the nose goes. Then from the nose to the bottom of the chin, we look for the 1/3 mark, and that is about where the mouth goes. The ears go from the eyebrow to the bottom of the nose. So you can pull those in here, and then they start about 1/3 back. So that's about where your ear is going to be. Earlier, while I was applying the clay, I was getting a lot of finger marks throughout the whole sculpture. So I went ahead and I took a popsicle stick because our class budget is not high enough to afford real sculpture tools. So we are improvising, and I'm using all the same tools that I'm giving you guys to show you that you can do it. Anyway, I took this popsicle stick and I just kind of smoothed out a lot of those rougher spots just by kind of brushing it over. If you find that your clay is getting too dry and it's starting to kind of stick and you're not getting the smoothness you want, you can just take your tool, just dampen it up a little bit, run it over your clay, and it will glide much more smoothly, and you'll get softer, cleaner lines out of it. You can also do the same thing with your fingers, but just keep in mind if you put too much water on your tool or on your fingers, you're going to end up with a sludge just kind of filling everything up. So you can just take it, smooth it out in the areas that you want to. Don't be afraid to turn your sculpture as you need to get every single angle to really see what's going on. And just kind of work your way around it. You want to keep your clay damp and soft. Don't let it get too dried out, but be careful about making it too wet as well. Just go around, smooth out those areas. Add more clay in areas where you need to. If there are dips or hollows in certain places, you can just clean it up with a little more clay. Now, if I want to add extra pieces to my sculpture, and I'm not just like squishing them on and smoothing them out with my fingers, say I want to add a little extra bulk for the nose, for instance, I can use what's called a slip to add some glue. A slip is basically clay glue, where you take some clay, you stick it in water, and you just kind of smooth it out and mix it in until you end up with this sludge. Just take some chunks. Just keep working it in. If you need to get more clay, don't put a lot of water in your dish when you're creating your slip. Too much water will just cause you to use too much clay. So just a very small amount of water. I may have even gotten too much. And just keep rubbing and adding until you get a smooth kind of muddy texture. You can use your tools if you want to. I like to use my fingers a lot because I can just really feel what's going on. Okay, I've worked my clay and water into a pretty muddy mess, and that will work for my slip. I've gone fairly thin with this. So if I want to add a little bit of bulk for the nose or maybe the ear, for instance, perhaps some areas of hair where you might need to add larger chunks, the slip will act as a good glue, because when you add something to your sculpture, it will stick now because everything is wet. But as it dries, it will start to lose that, it'll lose that moisture, and it'll lose the moisture between the two pieces as well. And you'll find that as it dries, it won't stick as well. So the slip, as well as just kind of roughing up the surface, both help to keep those objects attached. So two things you need to do when you're attaching an object to a sculpture. Just kind of rough up the back of the surface, and then the area where you're going to put it. Just rough it up a bit. I know it looks ugly right now, but you're about to cover it up. Then you can just take a little paintbrush, add some slip to it, and then just attach the piece. And you'll find that as it dries, it will stay on much better, because now it's got that rough surface to grab onto and the slip to kind of fill it in and help it to bond a little bit more. And then from there you can just keep adding and indenting. I'm indenting a position for the eyes here. Added a bit of the nose. The eyebrow arch up here tends to stick out further over the eyes. It protects our eyes, and so we want to make sure that our eyes kind of start out in there. You can add more for the eyebrow ridge. Look at this part, I'm smoothing it all on there. It's different than the nose, where I wanted to keep a big bulky piece. I'm just smoothing this on. So it's kind of the same process as it was going through all of this. So I don't have to add the slip or rough it up for this part, because I'm just adding bulk to it. Turn the sculpture and make sure I'm getting a shape that I want from the side. Remember, it's important to look at your sculpture from all sides. It's not a drawing. It's not two-dimensional. So you have to make sure that all of the sides look the way you want them to look. When you're ready to take a break from your sculpture, make sure that you cover it with a damp cloth. And then use a plastic bag over the sculpture. Make sure you don't get any holes in it like that. If you find one with a hole, grab another one. Cover your sculpture. Of course, be gentle. Don't put anything heavy on it. Strap it up. Make sure that it's wrapped all the way around so that you don't get any air in there. And store it in a safe place where it's not going to get bumped or squished or anything like that until you are ready to come back to it. I wouldn't leave it for too long. Check on it regularly. Last thing you want is to come back to your sculpture 5 days later, the day before class, and you have to have it ready, and you're working on it, and you find out that your sculpture has dried out. That could be a real problem. So make sure that you have the damp cloth in there, but not a wet cloth. Just damp. Wring it out really well. You just want it a little damp. Cover it with plastic. Tuck it in all the way around. And then check on it every now and then. You know, probably just once a day is a good idea. Check on it. So you feel like it's starting to dry out. Get the cloth wet again. Put it over it. Damp. Again, even if it's starting to dry out, you don't want a soaking wet cloth. Just damp. Make sure that that moisture stays in there with the clay. And then you can come back to it later. You can grab more clay, add to it, pinch, pull, use your slip, do everything else, as long as you keep your sculpture damp.